As you may have seen from some of my other videos, I sell at a lot of shows. I sell at the flea market. I sell on Amazon and eBay, and I sell wherever I can. I sell. That's what I've always done. I remember when I was a pretty small child, maybe fifth grade, maybe not that small, but being at a barber's, and the barber asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think I said rich or something like that. I certainly haven't achieved that. But he said, and laughed and said, how are you going to do it? I said, I'm going to buy things and sell things. And he just laughed at me and said, see, kids don't know what they're going to do with it anymore. But that's what I do. I buy things and I sell things. I knew what I was going to do when I was, 12 or 10 or whatever it was. Anyhow, two questions I get asked is, how do you get merchandise? And how do you find places to sell it? Honestly, those are the two hardest things in this job. And sourcing is hard. It's not easy. And finding venues to sell is not easy. I mean, you can't just relax. Believe it or not, although I'll be posting on sites, I'm also surfing. When I go out, I'm doing my job. And here's a little example. Summer's coming, I wanted a new hat. So I bought this little Superman hat. I like Superman. I thought this looked like a cool hat. And I need a hat for the shows. I have some hats, but they're getting ratty, and a nice one would be nice for me. I like it. And I'm not asking for your money for it. And then I saw some pins online, and I wanted to put some pins on my hat, maybe rotate them or something. So I got this, and I look, when these things come in, this is what I do. And I got this one in, and it's not a very well lit. Okay, that's Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. I really like that book. And I looked at the back, and it's Loot Crate. I said, okay, that's a cool pin. I like it. I'm keeping it. But I didn't learn anything from it. And this is what every day, all day, I do this. When I'm shopping, I look at things. If I like it, I do this. This is Vampirella. Oh, this lighting is not good. Vampirella, because I like that one. And I see it's from Dynamite. And I know that if I wanted to get that, I'd have to get it from the comic book distribution company. Impossible to do. I'm not a comic book company. They won't sell to online stores. I need to have a physical presence. Can't be done. And I also got Red Sonja from them. I like her. And then finally, I love this pin. I loved it. It's Sabrina. I'm going to wear that one on the front of my hat, I think. I really like Sabrina. I like the new show, The Chilling Adventures. And as far as sales go, I do carry a lot of Riverdale merchandise. And it's doing very well for me. And I also just ordered in a bunch of Sabrina Chilling Adventures merchandise. And I don't know what it's going to do. I haven't gotten it, but I liked it. And I noticed at the bottom it says at bettyandveronica.com. So the very first thing I did, let's get rid of this now, was went to bettyandveronica.com. And found their website. I looked. They have accessories. These are cute. A Jughead pin. I'd love to carry that. A lot are sold out. An Archie pin. A Cheryl Blossom pin. A Best Friends pin. We Can Do It pins. I mean, I like the pins. They don't have enough accessories for me, really. But it's enough. I could do an order. I can carry it if they are open to it. They do a lot of t-shirts and stuff. That's just too hard. I don't do that. And if you do, but that's what I do. I look, and if I can find and track down the company, I'll track down the company and I'll contact them and I'll talk to them. And a lot of times it's no. A lot of times I get sent to a distributor. But I'm always doing this. And if you go online on YouTube, you can see some good people who they do trash picking. People do that. You can do pallet purchases. I've never done any of these. A lot of retail arbitrage, which is going to a retail store and seeing if you can find stuff on sale that happens to sell for more online. And that's good because a lot of places don't have retail stores. I was amazed because I sell buttons very similar to this. And I do quite well, and that's one of the ones I got with my little TKO box from before. But I sell a lot of others. Like here's an elf button. I sell them online. You know, they sell for 99 cents at any store. I sell them for $2 plus some shipping charges. I make a good profit, and I never could figure out why. I realized, I'm like looking at these. You can go to any Hot Topic and get them. I realized a lot of people live in rural areas. You can't go to any Hot Topic and get them. They still want them. So, you know, they were worth it for me. That was the thing. But that's how I source. In fact, I was a long time ago, when I was in my mid-20s, I had a good friend who wanted to go to an Amway convention. And not a convention, a meeting. It was at a school or a church in one of the rooms. I don't know. As he wanted to get with this one gal, and she was going to be there, and he didn't want to go alone. I've always gone everywhere alone, so I don't understand that. But he wanted to go. He needed a wing. I don't know what he needed, so I went with him. And I listened to the spiel, the Amway spiel. And I don't know if you know Amway. But at the end, what you do is you buy product from them and sell it. But the big thing you're supposed to do is just get more people to sell. And at the end, you know, people were kind of milling around and talking, and I was selling at flea markets at that time. And my big thing I was selling at the flea market was knockoff perfume. I mean, it wasn't knockoff. It wasn't Drakkar. It says Dracul smells like a popular brand. I mean, they let you know it wasn't it. You know, it wasn't in a matching bottle, matching colors, but, you know. And I was selling stuff like that out at the flea market. And I said, look, you know, the stuff's too overpriced, for one. Your best bet is to go and source your own products and then find a place to sell them. And that's always your best bet. And I had about 10 people turn to me and said, can I pay you to do that? Or can I sign up for that? I was like, it's not a program. You do it. But yeah, and then we'll get into the story of the perfume just for the hell of it. This cheap knockoff perfume, it was terrible. It was mostly alcohol, didn't last long. But I saw some guy selling it like crazy for $10 a bottle. And I started talking to him, and this is a thing I've done many times when trying to sell. And I bought 10 bottles from him. 2 or 3 of each scent that was the most popular, or something like that. I spent about $100. He may have given me a discount, I forget. That's not important because I knew what I was doing. I then set him up at my booth at the flea market, you know, which was far from him, and I sold them for $10. I sold them for cost because that's what they sell for. And they sold fast. And I said, this is a product that sells. So then I went and started sourcing it. And I kept talking to people. And you got to do that. And finding out, you know, someone else wholesaled it, someone else wholesaled it to them. And when I was at one of the wholesalers, you know, who buys it, and I could buy them from them for, I think, $6 a bottle. I was looking at it, I picked out a few, and I kind of, as I was leaving, went to the garbage. And I looked at some labels. And someone not far from there was the one who they bought it from. People tend to throw boxes away. So not all of this is nice and it's legal, I guess. I don't know. But I took the label off the box, went to them, and finally I found out I could get these things for $2 and sell them for $10. So what I ended up doing was making a display, a really beautiful display. And I put all the bottles, one of each bottle out there, open, let people test them. Those were just burners to me. And it was $10 each, 3 for $25, and 3 for $25 was the sale all day long. Until people they wouldn't waste the burners. They wouldn't do anything. They just put them in boxes for like $5. They found the $2 source themselves. But instead of trying to make money, like I was making money, they put them in boxes in front of their table, like $5 each, 3 for $8. I mean, it was ridiculously cheap. And what people ended up doing was coming to my booth, testing them, and going to their booth and buying them. And I said, screw it, I'm done. We're out of this business now. And it ran as long as it could. But that's what sometimes you buy stuff, and you can buy it at too high a price. That's okay, because the goal is test it and then source it. But sourcing it's not easy. You might have to go to thrift stores, garbage pick. People do that. I've never done those yet. This is my sourcing method, is doing that. Now, the other thing is finding where to sell, and that's just as hard. And all I can say is talk. The way I started here, I sold then tons at the flea markets. At every flea market you could. That was back in the 80s and 90s. And I would talk to companies. I used to buy a lot and sell online once online started. And I'd end up with companies and they'd say, we've got extra cases of these knives. They're only $1 each. Do you want them? I'm like, yeah. Give me 1,000 knives. I'll take it. Well, if they didn't move, they didn't move. Or if they moved, nothing moves that fast. You could spend, I'd get it because I'd get it cheap. It's like they'd say they're $1 each, but you'd have, 5,000 knives. I'm like, I'll give you $1,000 for all of them. So you're getting them for 20 cents each or something like, stuff like that. Some patches I paid pennies for. And I always bought liquidations. That was my thing, was liquidations and sourcing like this, because I'd like the licensed stuff. Well, I ended up with a few cases of knives in my garage. And I'm up here, I moved up to Reno 3 years ago, and I'm driving around in Sparks, and I see that there's a Sparks flea market. And thank God, a place I can sell these knives. But I go and buy a booth and get there, and they tell me, you can't sell knives here. It's against the corporate rules, the corporation that owns the drive-in. I was like, crap. But driving home, I saw a billboard, and there's a gun show in Reno like every day. It's they love guns up in Nevada here. And there was a gun show billboard. I'm like, it's in about 3 weeks. I called them up. A table was $125 for a 6-foot table, I think it was. I'm like, let's go for it. And I get to the show, and actually the people next to me didn't even show up. And the guy says, hey, take that table if you got the money, the merchandise to move it. So I actually got 2 tables. And I threw the knives out there, and I put a decent price on, $5 each. Blew out of them. And I still have tons more. And I'm like, this was a fun show. I went and someone told me, there's another company that does gun shows in Reno, and they told me the name. I looked it up. I contacted them. I got into that show. At that show, I made friends with my neighbor, which you should do. And I was talking to her, and she said she does these shows. And I said, and how do I find out about them? And she told me, and I called them. I did that. And by doing that, I have found all of these places that I'm at now. And this was last July, I did the gun show. This year, I've done, the Cinco de Mayo, the flea market. Next weekend's the Truckee River Fest. The weekend after that is the Celtic Festival. I'll be doing a blues and barbecue. There's a wing. I mean, I'm doing all of them because people, I mean, once you're there and start talking, you'll find out about them. And if you don't have one to go to a thrift store, go to anywhere. They'll have little flyers on the counter. Take them all. Come home, look them all up, see if they're any good. If you're not sure, if it's too much, go to the show. They're going to have more shows. So go to it and look and see if it's got a crowd. I did that for one where I felt they were asking too much for a booth. So I went and I was glad I didn't buy the booth. Said next year I'm not even going to look at it either. So that's kind of sourcing and finding a place to sell. I have no magic answers. You got to hustle. That's about it.